Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are picking back up with the Immortal Hulk. We're getting caught back up again. I know we were kind of dropping off from this. So this is one of those weird stories. Not really even weird. Well, it is weird, right? It's Immortal Hulk. Like, Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk is so wonky, but it's so cool at the same time. Like, it's so different from any other Incredible Hulk story that I think I've ever read in my entire life. But this one kind of picks up seemingly in the middle of everything. And what you basically have here is this instance where something popped off, and the Incredible Hulk basically let off, or Immortal Hulk basically let off like this gamma explosion, right? Basically detonated like a gamma bomb. And the result is that no one really knows how to handle it, right? All you really have is Rick Jones, and you've got the Incredible Hulk. And so it's kind of like, okay, like, what's happening here? Now, you do have Jackie. For those of you guys who don't remember, Jackie's basically the friend of the Immortal Hulk. She was a member of the press and still kind of is, but she's the one who's kind of become an ally of the Hulk family, which was kind of a way for Al Ewing to have this situation, or to write these kind of stories where you would at least have some story out there that wouldn't shine a negative light on the Incredible Hulk or on the Immortal Hulk, and kind of just like show him as he is, as opposed to how the public generally perceives him. Whether or not it's popular among the public is something that Al Ewing's never particularly explored, but it is kind of cool to see. The important thing is that because of all this, Gamma Flight ultimately responds, right? Now, Gamma Flight is, by all standards of measurement, basically an anti-Hulk force, right? I mean, Gamma Flight has had different histories and different rosters over the course of Marvel Comics, but in its current form, like it has been over the course of the entire Immortal Hulk run, it's an anti-Hulk force. And that's why you have guys here who are some pretty heavy hitters, right? You've got Titania, who we've talked about in the original Secret Wars story from 1984 because she's been around for so long, who's basically just a super strong chick. You've got the Absorbing Man Crusher Creel, who was one of the most criminally underrated characters in all of Marvel Comics, really until Immortal Hulk. That's the reason why this story is so awesome for Crusher Creel. It is a story that focuses on the Hulk, right? This is Al Ewing's Hulk run, but he's done so much work to expand on Crusher Creel that it's amazing. And then you have Puck. I never really understood why Puck was on this team. But you have Puck, right? Just this really short guy. But the result here is that, of course, they basically kind of go after the Incredible Hulk with the intention of taking him out. Now, the entirety, like Jackie herself is like trying to keep this from happening. But at the end of the day, Gamma Flight's their main prerogative, right? Their number one goal here is to incapacitate the Hulk, to essentially take the Hulk out. And so in this conflict, he basically rips off the arm of Crusher Creel, which he's never going to lose his arm forever, right? All he has to do is just bond himself to metal, and then his arm will regrow, or any substance out there. It doesn't really matter. Titania gets pissed off because her and Crusher Creel have been banging for a long time, and so ultimately she goes after the Immortal Hulk. Now, while all that's happening, Jackie notices something. Jackie notices that Rick Jones is smiling the whole time. Now, one of the things that we learned in the last video is that this is not actually Rick Jones, right? Rick Jones is possessed by the leader, by Samuel Stearns, one of the main enemies of the Immortal Hulk, but we don't really know how that happened, right? We don't really know exactly how it is that the leader managed to take control and basically possess Rick Jones. But then you also have Crusher Creel, who comes with this like amazing idea, right? He's like, okay, he's like, think about it, home slice. He's like, you're the Absorbing Man. You can absorb and turn into essentially any material out there. The one thing we've never seen him absorb and turn into is adamantium. I guarantee we will at some point along the line, just because of all the work that's being done here. But he's like, I can absorb and turn into anything. And then he realizes I can also do it with gamma radiation, right? If it exists, I can turn into it. And so literally he just absorbs all this gamma radiation like he's done before, and then just emerges as like this giant, huge mountain of a man. Now from there, we switch back over to Shadow Base, where the main Hulk family's kind of residing, right? Doc Samson and so on. And then suddenly you have like basically this guy, Frye, who's currently sitting in a giant tank. Now, Frye was a character we were previously introduced to in the early launch of Immortal Hulk, right? And it's been a little while, so kind of a refresher here. Frye was basically a kid who, or really a high school kid who was playing football, and his dad essentially injected him with gamma radiation under the idea that it would basically enhance him a little bit, but it would prevent any of the major injuries that he would likely sustain while playing football, right? So ligament tears, broken bones, different things like that, and it would give him the best opportunity for success. The problem with this is that he died. Like immediately, right? He died like immediately when that happened. And so what ends up going on here is that the Immortal Hulk and his allies had essentially stumbled across this kind of gamma radiation signal, and then came across the grave of Frye, dug him up, and they've just kind of been, I guess, experimenting on him to a degree, or trying to get get a better understanding of him since they don't really know anything about him. But by and large, he's just kind of been in the background. Well, suddenly he pops up, right? He just emerges, like literally emerges from his tank, disintegrates one of the scientists, and then immediately goes after the whole group. Now, one of the things that we find out here, kind of a little bit of a flashback, is that when you do get this origin where he was exposed to gamma radiation by his dad and then ultimately died, that the reality is the green door opened behind him. And instead of the one below all passing through, it was the leader. So somehow or another, the leader managed to find his way to the realm of the one below all. And we'll actually find out how that happened. But basically, Frye has been reliving the same moment over and over and over again that was essentially his death. And so the leader kind of steps in and then basically possesses Frye. And that's how Frye is coming to life at the moment right now. The leader is literally going through and just attacking him. Right now, initially, like Leonard Samson, like Doc Samson, doesn't know who this is, right? He just thinks it's like, Frye who's just kind of popped up. And maybe like Frye's been listening, quote unquote, that he wasn't actually dead, right? He was really alive the whole time and just kind of in a form of stasis. But then as soon as leader starts talking about things like, remember how I made you who you are, right? Because he's the one that more or less made Doc Samson, that the result is that Doc Samson realizes it's the leader. And that's when he kind of starts to panic a little bit. Of course, he ends up going after him. But the reality is there's not much Doc Samson can do in the face of the leader, especially with a guy like this, because he immediately seizes Samson and says, okay, now it's time to play the game. And then basically snatches him and takes him to the below place, right? To the realm of the one below all, where the one below all just kind of resides there. And for the most part, it's a little bit of some exposition, but not a whole lot here, right? Instead, it's more of just kind of playing mind games and just basically saying that, like, the leader has managed to reach the realm of the one below all by passing through a green door. And again, not a whole lot there. There's not much in the way of explanation, but one of the things that he does kind of hit on here is he introduces this idea of what's called the red door. Now, again, this is kind of a big deal. And the reason why is because if you guys recall what's been going on with the Immortal Hulk so far, that whenever a person who's exposed to gamma radiation dies, that they basically end up being taken to the realm of the one below all. There's this kind of connection that exists between the one below all and gamma radiation itself. And it all kind of goes back to the formation of the Hulk. But the long and short of this is that when a person with gamma radiation dies, quote unquote, they go to the realm of the one below all and a green door opens, which is basically a means for them to pass into the real world. This is why being possessed by the one below all is such a big deal, because if a person like Doc Samson were to arrive there and then become possessed by the one below all, they could pass through the green door and enter into the real world and then have this virtually nigh omnipotent level of power. The result of this is that with the door being changed to red, what it essentially means is that if Doc Samson were to pass through it, what it basically means is that either Doc Samson cannot pass through the red door, meaning he can't come back, and that seems to be the case because, the way that Samuel Stearns describes it is he says red for danger, red for stop, from this side at least. So basically mean that like no magic can return him to life, that he's basically stuck here, or the possibility exists that if he does pass through the green door, he would actually die and go on to the realm of Mistress Death. That more or less seems to be the case. We're not given an actual explanation here. All we really have to go by is what, the leader says, which is the red door means you can't pass through it, right? It'd be like walking into a wall. You can't go back to the realm of the living. You're essentially stuck here. The result of this is that the Incredible Hulk, kind of going back to Immortal Hulk facing off against Absorbing Man, it's a cool bit of a conflict here. It's interesting, right? I mean, you see the Immortal Hulk literally fighting a giant, form of like gamma energy. But one of the things that happens is that with the leader in possession of both Rick Jones as well as Frye, when one of them is talking, the other one is as well. So you literally have Rick Jones who's just kind of talking to somebody who's not there because of the fact that Frye is talking to like the people who are there, right, in the gamma base. And so ultimately Charlene, who again is kind of the science, like the head science group of the Hulk family, ends up kind of initiating this teleportation, right? There's this kind of thing where she basically ends up ripping Frye away, literally like translocating him. At the same time, you end up having Doc Samson, who basically cracks the one below all version of the leader over the head. And so what it does is it creates a kind of energy effect, right? Where basically the leader, as he's in possession of Frye, as well as him being in possession of Rick Jones, kind of reflects this pain, right? This anguish. Because if you consider these guys to be like facsimiles, then the leader, as he exists in the realm of the one below all right now, is like the leader prime, right? So it's like if the leader duplicated himself and then you attacked the main leader, the other duplicates would feel the same pain, right? I don't know if that really makes any sense, but that's basically what's happening here. And so ultimately they're kind of teleported away. And then one of the things that kind of goes on, and this is all really kind of the plan of the leader, the idea of counting on what Gamma Flight would do with the Incredible Hulk being pushed continually over and over again and the rest of the team being distracted. Nobody really being there in order to talk him down. Jackie tries to, but the leader knows Gamma Flight and he knows the history of the Immortal Hulk well enough to know that Gamma Flight is not going to listen, right? Their main goal here is to destroy, or at least to kill Immortal Hulk, which is really just kind of incapacitating them, which they're aware of, and that nobody's really going to bring this to a peaceful end. And that's exactly what happens. Gamma Flight basically kills the Immortal Hulk, and then the Immortal Hulk is teleported to the realm of the One Below All when the green door opens. And so again, that's kind of his bit of a situation here. Now, what you also have is this really interesting concept where you have this being that's effectively chained up, right? Like literally chained up in this giant steel container and essentially held there, and kind of talks about how like they can feel everything that's going on, right? They can feel everything taking place. It's kind of called the inner world, which is basically the mindscape of Bruce Banner, right inside the mind of Banner himself, and that this individual was essentially captured by the leader and chained up in this location and basically kept there, right? Indicating whoever this person is, their power is far beyond anything the leader can really pull off here, right? And so what you end up getting is kind of the leader in the form of Worldbreaker Hulk, which is pretty nuts. And by all standards of measurement, we'd have to assume he contains the same level of power as the Worldbreaker Hulk does, right? Otherwise, why give us this form of the leader? Why would Al Ewing make him look this way? And it's one of these things where, again, the Immortal Hulk is kind of experiencing these dreams or this kind of memory series in his mind and speaking outright as he's experiencing that, right? But ultimately, he's taken to where Joe Fixit and Bruce Banner are chained up inside of Banner's own mindscape. Now, this is kind of the crazy thing, and this is an important thing to understand here when it comes to the Immortal Hulk. I know it seems a little strange, but what's basically going on here is a foreign entity has infiltrated the mind of Bruce Banner, and then in turn is controlling it. That's not uncommon for the Incredible Hulk mythos, not insofar as some foreign entity taking over the mind of Banner, but in the sense of one of the personalities in Banner's mind essentially taking over all the others, right? And we've seen that happen in different forms. We've even seen these personalities merge into a singular personality, which is Professor Hulk, right? We've seen what happens when these kind of things calm down, right? When these kind of things take place in the Incredible Hulk's mind. And so basically, Joe Fixit is chained up here, Bruce Banner is chained up here, and now the Immortal Hulk is chained up here. And the whole idea here of the leader is to take Bruce Banner and send him through the green door and into the realm of the One Below All. Why it is he's doing this, again, we don't fully understand. We'll find out here in a minute or two. But in that moment, Bruce Banner cries out for help, right? Cries out for help from anybody who will listen. And then in comes this guy who was chained up, who's basically revealed to be the Devil Hulk. Now, here's the crazy thing about this. The Devil Hulk is one of the more interesting concepts or interesting versions of the Incredible Hulk in Marvel Comics, but you don't really see a whole lot about him. The way it's kind of given to us here, because the mindscape is one of these things where the personifications of the different versions of the Hulk are directly tied to the emotional state of the Immortal Hulk and really just the experiences of Banner over the course of his life, that the Devil Hulk in a lot of ways represents all the torment and suffering he's experienced over the course of his life kind of manifested. In a lot of ways, it's almost given to us as this idea that the Devil Hulk was the first version of the Hulk to manifest in the mind of Banner when he was being abused by his father. And then once he actually was exposed to gamma radiation because of the gamma bomb, the Incredible Hulk manifested. Then you got things like Joe Fixit and so on and so forth. But the Devil Hulk is the most emotionally powerful of all the versions of the Hulk that exist out there. And so that's why you essentially see this kind of fight breaking down between what is basically Worldbreaker Hulk, who's more or less possessed by the leader, and then Devil Hulk. And Devil Hulk literally crushes Worldbreaker Hulk. I mean, just pummels this guy, absolutely pummels this guy. It's not even close, right? Because it's just sheer raw emotion here. And that's one of the big differences, is that with Worldbreaker Hulk, it was technically the Incredible Hulk at his angriest, but he had also achieved this just kind of pure form, right? In the sense that it seemed like the Incredible Hulk at his angriest, but also his most calm at the same time. And I know it sounds like an oxymoron to say that, but that's why, like, when you go and you read, Worldbreaker or World War Hulk by Greg Pak, that the Worldbreaker Hulk is basically like, I wouldn't really say like peaceful, but he's methodical. Like, it's just one of these things where it's like, okay, like I'm so pissed off that I'm rational now. And that's like a whole nother level of being angry. But nonetheless, it's one of these kind of crazy things here where you basically switch over to the leader and we kind of find out how all this popped off with him. Now, the idea behind this is that those individuals who are able to access the realm of the One Below All through gamma radiation, that it is most usually only allowed by those individuals who are of pure gamma radiation, right? Meaning that they are rooted in the Incredible Hulk and the gamma radiation he contains. The leader is a little bit different here. The way it's explained here is that the leader essentially synthesized a means by which to basically create a green door and enter the realm of the One Below All. But when he got there, he met Brian Banner. And one of the things about this is that Brian Banner kind of depicts this idea that when he was doing all these crappy things and when he was kind of tormenting the Immortal Hulk, during at the beginning of Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk run, that is because he was possessed by the One Below All, which we know that was the case, right? We know that to be the case. But one of the things that Leader doesn't really understand is what is it that the one below all is looking for, right? And how is it that a person can kind of reach into the real world and then manipulate the Immortal Hulk from here? Because the Leader wants to just destroy, like he's always wanted to destroy the Immortal Hulk, right? That's kind of his main goal. And that was all, that's, you know, as basic as that ideology is here, the way he goes about it is genius. Given the fact that the way that Brian Banner explains it, the one below all needs a physical body. That the one below all doesn't actually have a physical form itself. Instead, it's just raw desire and exceedingly terrible desires, right? But it's just more or less raw emotion. What it needs to do is bond itself to a host and then in turn use that host to enter into the real world. That the one below all in its current form cannot pass through a green door and then just enter into the real world and then just take on some kind of a physical form and conquer all of the multiverse. It doesn't work that way. And so that's when Leader realizes, I can get behind this. And so literally Leader basically tricks Brian Banner and then completely absorbs him. And so the idea is that in some of these instances when Brian Banner appeared in the Immortal Hulk run, that it was actually the Leader in possession or appearing to look like Brian Banner. Not only that, now that he's consumed Brian, he has what's called the mark of the one below all. And then in turn, he reveals his goal is to actually achieve a means by which the one below all can enter into the real world and then conquer all of reality. Kind of harkening back to the story that we did where the Immortal Hulk was on a cosmic level and basically destroyed the entirety of the multiverse when the multiverse is reborn in its 9th iteration, that basically Leader realizes the only way for the one below all to achieve its full totality of power is if it is in possession of the Immortal Hulk. And that's the whole goal behind this, that the Leader wants to help the one below all succeed. The only way to do that is to mess with, to basically end up snatching the Immortal Hulk and Banner, bring them to the realm of the one below all, and then allow the one below all to essentially possess them and then go into the multiverse and destroy everything in existence, right? He literally wants to help the end of creation. And so again, kind of jumping back to the current moment, that when you have the Devil Hulk just absolutely pummeling Immortal Hulk, the big fear that kind of pops up here is you end up having the arrival of the Leader manifest into the form of Brian Banner. Now, it's not one of these things where it terrifies the Devil Hulk to the point where he starts crying or anything like that, but the Devil Hulk was born out of the abuse of Brian Banner. And really, in a lot of ways, it's part and parcel to Brian Banner. And so that's when he's kind of like where do you think, like, all this rage and everything that you are me, right? You are my rage incarnate, right? You're my wrath. You're a reflection of me and as abusive as I was. Where do you think you got your personality from? How do you think you became the person that you are? You know, where is the lie in all of this, right? If you tell me that I'm not you, you know, or you're not me, and that I'm lying to you, where's the lie? Look at yourself, look at me, right? Look at the abuse that I put you through, and look at who you are. Look at the things that you've done, right? You are a reflection of me. And Bruce Banner kind of refuses to accept that and then immediately goes after the Leader. Now, of course, this leads to the Immortal Hulk kind of watching all this unfold and desiring to kind of end the conflict, right? And it's not because of the fact that he doesn't want to fight for the sake of wanting a fight. It's because of the fact that in seeing Brian Banner's persona, the Immortal Hulk, or really kind of, I guess it's really just the baseline Incredible Hulk at this point, is not the sharpest tool in the shed. And so ultimately, he kind of comes to this idea that all I want my father to do is tell me that he loves me, right? That's the only thing that I want. I just want my dad to say like I love you, right? I love you, I care about you. And in doing this, he stops the Devil Hulk from destroying the Leader, who he's kind of seeing as Brian Banner, and because of the fact that Brian Banner has been absorbed by the Leader. So to destroy the Leader is to destroy Brian Banner, and to destroy Brian Banner is to ruin the Immortal Hulk's chances of getting his father's approval and his father's love. And so in that moment, it basically allows the Leader to kill the Devil Hulk, right? To basically decapitate him. And that was their one shot at success. That was their one shot to come out on top. There's no real conceivable way for them to win anymore. And so what you have is the Leader who snatches up Bruce Banner, takes him through the green door, and disappears. And all you're left with is basically the Hulk and Joe Fixit. And Joe Fixit is pissed, right? Joe Fixit is mad as hell because he's kind of like, okay, this is a problem, right? Like, this is a major issue. Like, why would you do this, right? Why would you do any of this? Like, you've literally just destroyed our chances of saving Banner and quite possibly doomed all of creation, right? And so from there, you end up jumping to the base of Gamma Flight, right? To really the Alpha Flight space station, but you end up jumping to the Gamma Flight team. And you have, of course, Walter, also known as Sasquatch, who's still dead after being shot in the head, who's just kind of in a kind of, not really, I guess, a coffin, if that's what you want to call it. But basically, he ends up popping back to life, right? Now, you also have Jackie, who kind of introduces this idea that where Gamma Flight's operating under the guise that, like, the Immortal Hulk just for whatever reason went crazy and destroyed an entire town in a gamma explosion. Her response is, it doesn't actually seem to be that way, right? That the Immortal Hulk was pissed off, like exceedingly mad for a second or two, and then calmed down due to whatever it was that was going on. And then Rick Jones showed up, and Rick Jones touched him, and then something happened, and then, like, literally the Immortal Hulk just snapped and just let off this massive explosion. And so looking at the facts because of the fact that, you know, she's a journalist. Her job, well, ideally her job's to look at the facts, that she kind of looks at this and says, from what I can tell, Rick Jones was the one who caused this, right? And that's when you basically have Leonard Samson, who is kind of the new Sasquatch, took over the body of Walter and then just kind of popped back up again and says, yeah, basically it was Rick Jones that caused all of this. How he caused it and why he caused it, I don't fully know, but we know that he did. And so during this time, of course, while the Immortal Hulk is kind of held, kind of put in a holding facility, because again, he's more or less immortal, right? In the sense that like he'll always heal, and the injury he sustained didn't really kill him. His body would more or less heal and come back. That he's met by the arrival of Henry Peter Gyrich. Now, Henry Peter Gyrich is old school. This guy is OG. Technically, he is the head of the Alpha Flight program right now, but for those of you guys who aren't really familiar with his history, this is the guy who helped to spearhead Project Wide Awake, the Sentinels against the X-Men and all that kind of stuff. That was Henry Peter Gyrich, right? This guy is OG, right? I mean, this guy has worked against the superhero community in almost every conceivable way since he's been introduced in Marvel Comics, right? If you're a superhero team that exists out there, there's a good chance you've had a run-in with Henry Peter Gyrich, and so basically he's kind of held here. Now, one of the reason why I include this little tidbit here, because normally I would have skipped over it, but the reason why we included this little tidbit here is you have this moment where, again, like everything that Henry Peter Gyrich says kind of echoes, so to speak, through the mindscape of Banner. So essentially, Joe Fixit hears everything that Henry Peter Gyrich is saying. And one of the things that Gyrich says is that you can't escape your bonds, right? If you decide to turn back into Banner and shrink down into your current form, your human form, which of course we know he can't do, that the bonds will shrink with him. And that's when it hits on Joe Fixit. Oh, I know exactly what to do, right? Like, apparently this guy hasn't kept up on things. We don't just shrink down back into our human forms anymore. Our human forms bust out of our physical forms, right? Just literally emerge from it, which leads me to believe there have to be like these Immortal Hulk corpses all over the world where instead of like the Immortal Hulk, quote unquote, shrinking back down into Banner, then instead Banner just like busts out of his Immortal Hulk form, and that's how Banner returns to normal. But that's when it hits on Joe Fixit, who's kind of like, okay, we can escape this. So literally he busts out of the form of the Immortal Hulk, right? Which is how he returns to his normal self, and then takes out Henry Peter Gyrich and the two guards, grabs a gun, and then basically starts to leave. Now, of course, he runs into Samson and the rest of Gamma Flight, and Samson realizes, okay, this is Joe Fixit, right? This is one of Bruce Banner's alternate personalities. That's why he looks like Banner, because it's just one of his other personalities that exists. But like, Joe Fixit's not as crazy as he used to be, right? Which for any of you guys who know the history of Joe Fixit in Marvel Comics, this guy used to be intense, right? Like Joe Fixit, I still say Joe Fixit personality-wise is the best version of the Hulk who's out there. I loved Joe Fixit. He was so cool and he was so fun. He was literally the guy ran Vegas at one point. So it was just kind of like, damn, like this is awesome. His personality is amazing. In any event, where Samson's kind of like, yeah, you know, Joe Fixit, he's a lot more reasonable than he used to be. He's like, yeah, that's me all over. Reasonable. And then fires a gun into the window of the space station, right? He gets sucked out into space. Now the protocols immediately kick in, right? Which starts shutting down, shuts down this access hole. But like literally Joe Fixit's ripped into the vacuum of space. Now you would normally expect that to kill him. It doesn't, because again, like he turns back into the Immortal Hulk. And it's a genius strategy there, right? Emerge from the Immortal Hulk into your human form in order to escape your confines, jump into space. The danger of the situation will just force him to turn back into the Immortal Hulk. And that's exactly what happens. Ultimately, he ends up landing on the Coney Island channel. The problem is that when he gets there, he's immediately met by the Thing, Ben Grimm, which you guys had to know it was only a matter of time before we saw this conflict unfold. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. And yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.